If you've ever stared at a presentation or a textbook and felt completely lost, it probably wasn't the subject matter. It was the design. Today we are talking about extraneous load. If your working memory is the bench, extraneous load is the clutter. It's the bad instructional design, the unnecessary noise, and the confusing layouts that steal your brain's processing power before the learning even begins. But first, we're going to start with a misconception. Before we look at the specific mistakes that we make, we need to clear up a really common confusion. The difference between extrinsic factors and extraneous load. They sound similar, but confusing them will lead you in the wrong direction. Extrinsic factors are environmental. It's your phone buzzing, a noisy cafe, feeling tired, and even a dog barking loudly outside your window. You fix extrinsic problems purely by changing your environment or putting on noise-cancelling headphones. Extraneous load, however, is built directly into the learning material itself. It's the cluttered PowerPoint, the confusing textbook layout, or the badly paced tutorial. In our kitchen, it's when the recipe leaves you rereading the instructions over and over to try and work out what you should actually be doing. And here is why this distinction is incredibly important. You can sit in a perfectly quiet room with your absolutely zero extrinsic distractions, but if the extraneous load of the lesson is too high, your working memory bench will still crash. You can't just put on headphones to fix bad instructional design. Instead, you need to rewrite the recipe. And here's how you do it. The first mistake to avoid is violating the coherence effect. This means that we need to be thoughtful in ensuring that the information that is presented is relevant and applicable. When presenting information, it can be easy to add things to make it fun and engaging, such as adding background music to a tutorial, or putting a funny GIF on a slide, or telling an unrelated anecdote. In cognitive load theory, these are called seductive details, and they are destroying your working memory. Going back to our kitchen bench analogy from the first video, these details are the clutter on that bench. The mail, the car keys, the dirty dishes that need to be dealt with. They aren't part of the recipe, but your brain still has to spend precious energy looking at them, processing them, and deciding to ignore them. The fix for this one is simple. Be ruthless. If a graphic, a sound, or a story does not directly serve the exact learning goal, cut it out, and keep that bench clear. The second issue to address is the split attention effect. Imagine trying to cook at your bench, but the recipe book is in another room. You have to keep walking back and forth trying to hold the instructions in your head until you reach the kitchen. It sounds ridiculous, but perfectly highlights the way that we sometimes try and learn. This happens when we separate connected information. If you have a diagram on the left side of the screen and the explanatory text and the legend on the right side, the learner's eyes have to frantically dart back and forth. This is called spatial split attention. The space between the information increases the cognitive load. There will even be instances where you have to turn a page to look at a diagram and then turn back to the page before to see how the information applies. There is also temporal split attention, where the timing of the information is delayed or mismatched. This will be giving an explanation of a diagram before showing this to you, talking about the details before revealing how this applies. Your working memory is forced to try and retain all of these details, and they end up spilling out before you can make a connection. The key to overcoming this is to integrate the information. Put the text labels directly on the diagram. Take a photo of a diagram to have it beside the appropriate text. Essentially, you're making sure that you bring the recipe book to the bench where you are working. And next we have the redundancy effect. This is where dense information is broadcast simultaneously in multiple ways, such as a large chunk of text on a PowerPoint that is then read aloud by the presenter. This actively harms learning. When you do this, the learner's brain tries to process the visual text and the auditory text at the exact same time, constantly comparing them to see if they match. This double processing creates a massive unnecessary cognitive load. And no, I won't put you through that again. You might remember reading the same book as a class and having one person who would read it aloud. If a particular person was slower than your reading speed, it creates a tension between the verbal and auditory pathways that increases load and decreases the ability to take this on. For this one, the fix is easy. Pick one. Either put a supporting image on the screen and speak the words yourself, or and this brings us to the ultimate tool for your working memory, the modality effect. Your working memory actually has two separate subsystems, a visual channel for images and an auditory channel for spoken words. If you put heavy text and a complex diagram on the screen, you completely jam the visual channel while leaving the auditory channel entirely empty. It's like trying to carry all of your groceries in one hand. By shifting the text off the screen and turning it into spoken narration, you balance the weight. You use the visual channel for the diagram and the auditory channel for the explanation. By utilizing both channels, you effectively expand the size of your working memory bench. This also ties in nicely with dual coding theory, where an alignment between the verbal and the visual systems enhances learning and retrieval. The takeaway for this one is to consider how the information has been given. Don't overload one particular system. See how you can balance it between the two. That'll make a real difference to how you or your learner will take these on. Now we move on to the bonus section, instructional and question design. If you've ever been given instructions or information while you're working on something else, you will know the difficulty of retaining this for later. Too many instructions simultaneously overwhelms the working memory, leaving people confused before they've started. That's why it's important to either simplify and reduce the instructions or write these down to remove them from the working memory and ensure that they are easily accessible. And then it comes to question design. Consider the following question and identify the extraneous information. I'm going to use your auditory channel for this one. Johnny is saving for a red bicycle with suspension and disc brakes that costs $255. He works at the local grocery store on weekends and earns $15 an hour, stocking shelves, ensuring all of the trolleys are stacked away, as well as sometimes helping out at the checkout. If he works 4 hours a week and is hoping to take the bike out on the new mountain bike track that is open near his school, how many weeks does he need to work? How did you go with that? It's very difficult to hold all of those details when we receive the information audibly. Let's have a look at the question now. This ties in with the coherence effect. What information is actually relevant to answer the question and what information is detracting and occupying space in the working memory. It's easy to spot visually that this is a maths question and what the numbers are. However, the extraneous material still sits in the working memory, which is trying to determine the relevance of it. The key takeaway of this is to be clear and concise. Whilst it might seem obvious, things get overcomplicated very quickly with those unnecessary details, particularly when they're embedded into a question or instructions. Well done for making it here. It's a massive challenge to present these robust principles about cognitive load theory without overloading your working memory. To assist with this, comment which of these concepts has resonated with you and what will you keep in mind moving forward. The fight for your working memory is real and you are the one who can really make a difference.